Hello, listeners. Have you ever been watching your favorite English movie, boldly turned off the subtitles, and suddenly thought, oh my goodness, how in the world are they talking so fast? I can't understand a single
Oh,
word.
yeah. It is, it's honestly one of the most universally terrifying moments in the whole language learning journey.
It really is.
You know, you go from feeling completely confident, just sitting comfortably on your couch, to feeling entirely lost. And it happens in a matter of milliseconds. It's this really sudden, jarring disconnect.
Like all your hard work just evaporated. Oh,
Exactly. Poof.
gone.
But, well, here's the good news. In exactly the next 10 minutes, you will learn the exact psychological secret to letting go of that frustration and how to train your brain to stop panicking when native speakers talk fast. So, welcome to Everyday English Flow, daily English practice, natural speaking, and effortless listening flow.
It is fantastic to dive into this with you today because, this is the core problem faced by learners across the globe.
What? We have looked really deeply into the research from top language experts, and the scenario they paint is just incredibly consistent. You're sitting in a high-stakes business meeting, or maybe you're just trying to unwind and watch TV, and suddenly this massive wave of isolation washes over
Like
you.
how that panic sets in?
Right, you feel completely overwhelmed because you realize suddenly you only understand about 10% of the fast English being spoken.
10%. And when you are only catching 1 out of every 10 words, you cannot survive a business meeting.
No, definitely not.
And you certainly cannot enjoy a movie. Your brain just redlines. So today we're going to unpack 5 massive secrets to mastering fast English. But before we even get to those 5 secrets, there is one crucial mindset shift you absolutely must make right now.
Right.
You have to stop blaming yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really the foundational step. The guilt and the self-blame, they actually block your ability to learn. Top language experts, and we see this emphasized constantly by really respected authorities in the field, like Vanessa, they insist that you have to separate your intelligence from your current listening comprehension.
It's just hard to do.
It's so hard because, the way native speakers talk in the real world, out on the streets or in a bustling office, it is fundamentally and mechanically different from the way English is written in your textbook.
Right.
You are not failing. You are simply encountering a completely different mechanism of communication.
Okay, let's unpack this right away. Because when we talk about this massive gap between textbook English and real-world English, we run into some pretty intense psychological barriers.
Oh, big time.
And that actually brings us to our first language focus for today. We have 2 fantastic C1 level words to introduce that perfectly describe this situation.
Wow.
The words are unfamiliar and sensation.
Ooh, those are good ones.
Let's elevate how we talk about this problem, right?
Yeah, let's look closely at unfamiliar first. So as an adjective, it generally means not known or recognized. But in the context of language acquisition, it means your brain literally does not possess the neural pathways to map the sound you are hearing to a known meaning.
Like the road hasn't been paved yet.
Exactly. When you encounter something unfamiliar, you are navigating without a compass. So, a great C1 example sentence would be, let's see, the highly compressed, fast pace of native English speakers is utterly unfamiliar to a student who has only studied perfectly articulated grammar audio.
That is such a great sentence.
Thanks. I mean, it's not that the language is too hard.
Yeah.
It is just structurally unfamiliar to your ear.
I love how analytical that is. It completely removes the personal blame from the learner.
Yeah.
Your ear just hasn't mapped the territory yet,
Right, it's just biology at that point.
And that leads directly to the second word, which is sensation. Because when you hear that unfamiliar noise, your body literally reacts to it.
Precisely. Sensation is a noun. And while it can mean like a widespread reaction of public excitement, like a pop star being an overnight sensation in neuroscience and psychology, it refers to a physical or emotional feeling resulting from an external stimulus.
Like a physical shock to the system.
Yeah. When that rapid-fire English hits your eardrums and your brain fails to decode it, you experience a very visceral physiological sensation.
Sweaty palms, the whole thing.
Your heart rate might even spike. So to put it in a C1 level sentence, the sensation of panic when someone speaks too quickly can be paralyzing, effectively shutting down the brain's language processing centers.
Paralyzing. That is exactly what it is. You just freeze like a deer in headlights. But listen, listeners, if you have ever felt that paralyzing sensation, you need to stick around until the very end, because we have a highly valuable bonus waiting for you at the end of this deep dive.
It is a phenomenal bonus.
It is going to completely change the way you construct your daily practice, I promise you.
Yeah, it focuses on the specific time frame needed to actually rewire those neural pathways we just mentioned. But, before we get to that, we have to start dismantling that paralyzing panic.
And that means looking at exactly how native speech is constructed. Which brings us to our first big milestone. If you're finding this helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Because in the next 10 minutes, you're going to learn exactly how native speakers glue their words together and why studying a dictionary is actually ruining your listening skills.
It does sound like a paradox, doesn't it?
It really does. Like, why would a dictionary be bad?
That memorizing the dictionary could actually be detrimental to understanding spoken language. But it all comes down to the mechanics of the brain, which leads us to secret number one. Watch movies or TV shows you already know in your native language.
Okay, hold on. Let me push back on this a little bit because I know what you're thinking out there. If I already know the story, let's say I decide to watch Disney's Frozen, or I put on Forrest Gump, aren't I just relying on my memory?
That's a common fear, yeah.
I mean, I already know that Forrest Gump is going to run across the United States. I know Elsa is going to sing her heart out on an icy mountain. So if I already know the plot, am I actually practicing my English listening, or am I just kind of coasting on my memory of what happens next?
It is a totally valid challenge, and the answer lies in something called cognitive load theory.
Okay, lay it on me.
Think about what your brain is attempting to do when you sit down to watch a completely brand new, highly complex movie in a foreign language. Your brain is doing massive double duty.
Like trying to juggle while riding a unicycle.
Exactly. On one hand, it is desperately trying to decode the unfamiliar English vocabulary, the syntax, the sheer speed of it all. On the other hand, it is trying to follow a brand new plot, deduce character motivations, figure out the setting, and anticipate the narrative arc.
That is an enormous, overwhelming cognitive load.
It's too much.
Ah, I see. So your brain is essentially a computer whose RAM is completely maxed out. You're running way too many heavy applications at the same time, so the whole system starts to lag and freeze.
Exactly. The processor just crashes. But when you watch a movie you already know intimately, like Frozen or Forrest Gump, you entirely eliminate the cognitive load of following the plot.
Because you already know what's going to happen.
Right. You know the story, you know the characters, you know who the villain is. By removing that massive task, you drastically lower your anxiety.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
When you aren't terrified of losing the thread of the story, your brain suddenly has the freed up capacity to actually focus on the acoustics. It allows you to actually hear the English words.
It replaces that sensation of frustration with a foundation of confidence.
Yes, exactly. And I should add, using English subtitles while you do this is perfectly acceptable. It provides a visual anchor that bridges the gap between the text you know and the sounds you're trying to decode.
That makes profound sense. You are building a safe sandbox for your brain to play in, really.
Yeah.
You remove the mystery of the narrative so you can focus 100% of your energy on the mystery of the phonetics.
That's a great way to put it.
But once you are in that safe sandbox, what are you actually listening for? Because as we said earlier, they aren't speaking dictionary words. And this is where we hit secret number 2.
Yeah.
You have to shift your focus away from individual words and start intensely studying linking expressions.
This is the exact point where the illusion of the textbook just shatters. Native speakers do not speak in individual, cleanly separated words. They rely heavily on phonetic reductions and linking.
Heavily.
If your brain is scanning the audio stream for the crisp textbook pronunciation of a word, you will be completely lost.
Because that version of the word simply does not exist in the air between the speaker and you.
Exactly. It's a ghost word.
Here is where it gets really interesting. We need to do a deep dive into the actual phonetics of this, because understanding the mechanics removes the mystery. Let's trace the evolution of a very simple everyday phrase. Let's take, I am going to.
Okay, let's break it down. In a textbook or, in a very formal robotic reading, it is 4 distinct, isolated words. I am going to. Every syllable gets equal weight. But in reality, human mouths are fundamentally lazy.
They're very lazy.
We want to expend the least amount of muscular energy possible to convey the meaning. So first, the pronoun and the verb contract, I am, squeezes together into I'm. So step 1 is I'm going to.
Right. But it absolutely does not stop there. The phrase going to gets smashed together in a blender to become gonna. So now we have evolved to I'm gonna, like I'm going to eat lunch or I'm going to go to the store.
And here's the wildest part of phonetic reduction. In fast, fluent, casual English, it reduces even further than gonna.
Oh, yeah, it does.
The G consonant sound often gets completely dropped, softens and vanishes, leaving only the vowels. It becomes I'm on yeah, I'm on go. I'm on get some sleep. Think about the gap between the expectation and the reality here. If you are searching your brain for the distinct multisyllabic sounds of I am going to, and the speaker rapidly exhales on,
Yeah.
your brain simply will not register it as English.
It'll just sound like a random vocalization.
Yeah.
A grunt, almost. It is exactly like baking a cake. Think about the ingredients. You have raw flour, raw eggs, a stick of butter, and raw sugar. If you try to eat those separately, it's disgusting.
Yeah, nobody wants a spoonful of raw flour.
No. But when you mix them and apply the heat of an oven, they undergo a chemical transformation. They bake together into an entirely new, unified creation, a cake.
Right.
Native speakers bake their words together into one continuous stream of sound. And as a language learner, you are constantly trying to listen for the raw ingredients. You are desperately looking for the flour and the eggs when you should be recognizing the cake.
That analogy perfectly captures the linguistics of fluency. I love that. The heat of the oven is the speed of the conversation, and this baking process is happening constantly in almost every sentence you hear.
Every single sentence.
Let's look at another very common raw ingredient, the phrase go to. Imagine you want to tell a colleague that you need to go to the office or go to school.
Right, nobody in a real fast-paced environment says, I need to go to the office. The crisp T sound in the word to seems to just vanish completely.
Well, it doesn't vanish entirely. It transforms mechanically. Linguists call this an alveolar tap or a flap T.
The dreaded flap T.
Yes. Because the T is trapped between two vowel sounds, the tongue doesn't fully stop the airflow to create a hard T. Instead, it just briefly taps the roof of the mouth. So go to softens dramatically and becomes go duh.
Go duh.
Yeah, it sounds almost exactly like a soft D. Go duh the office, go duh school. It is a principle of phonetic linking that allows the language to flow faster and with far less muscular effort.
And go duh. It completely changes the rhythm of the sentence. And speaking of changing rhythms, what about words that end in T and N? Because this is a phonetic feature that I know absolutely drives learners up the wall. The infamous swallowed T.
Ah, yes, the glottal stop. This is a highly characteristic, almost defining feature of modern American English. When a word has a T sound followed closely by an N sound, like in the word mountan, your textbook and perhaps your English teacher will enunciate it as mountain with a crisp puff of air on the T.
Mountain. Very precise.
But in fast, natural English, we do something entirely different. We use a glottal stop. We literally cut off the airflow in our throat down at the glottis rather than using our tongue behind our teeth. It becomes mountain.
Mountain. It sounds like you hit a brick wall right in the middle of the word. The air just stops. So you might hear someone say, I'm going to go to the mountain.
Right.
If you are waiting for I'm going to the mountain, you will completely miss the meaning.
Exactly. And this glottal stop happens in hundreds of incredibly common words. Think of the small circular object you use to fasten your shirt. button.
Oh, button.
Right? But we absolutely do not say button in casual speech. We say button, or consider the verb for making a hostile declaration, threaten. We don't say threaten, we say threat.
That's right.
The vocal cords literally snap shut. If you don't realize that native speakers swallow these letters to save time and breath, you will always feel that paralyzing sensation of missing crucial information.
Understanding the mechanics behind this is so empowering. It proves that the language isn't actually too fast. It is just baked together differently than your textbook led you to expect.
Very differently.
And analyzing this is a perfect time to introduce our next C1 language focus, which is the highly useful phrasal verb, break down.
Oh, this is a great one. The phrasal verb to break down is incredibly versatile.
Right.
It can mean a mechanical failure, like a car breaking down on the side of the highway.
Right.
Or it can mean an emotional collapse, like someone breaking down in tears. But in an academic, analytical, or learning context, it means to separate a complex concept or structure into smaller, more manageable, and understandable parts.
So you're taking a big thing and chopping it into pieces.
You are analyzing it piece by piece to understand how it functions as a whole.
Exactly like we just did with I am going to and I'm on it. So a stellar C1 example sentence would be, how about, in order to fully understand the implications of the complex legal document, the senior lawyer had to break down the dense terminology for her client.
That's a perfect example. Or, applied to our specific mission today, Let's break down this rapid-fire sentence to see exactly how the individual sounds are linked.
Precisely. Breaking down these baked-together phonetic clusters is the absolute only way to train your ear to recognize the raw ingredients hiding within the cake. It is an analytical exercise that builds real-world comprehension.
It really is.
This is genuinely fascinating stuff. But, it raises a huge question. Knowing the mechanical phonetics of a glottal stop is one thing, but feeling brave enough to actually sit in a room and process them without panicking is entirely different.
Oh, completely different.
How do we manage the fear? Which brings us to our next milestone preview. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to tackle the emotional side of language learning, and you'll learn a natural, casual phrase to use when you are rushing out the door.
The emotional mountain, or as we should probably say now, the mountain, is almost always steeper and more treacherous than the linguistic one. Secret number 3 is entirely focused on combating discouragement.
Because it's so easy to get discouraged.
It is. And if you cannot manage your anxiety, your brain's affective filter goes up and you literally cannot acquire new language. Your brain just blocks it out.
Let's really set the scene here. We talked earlier about that high-stakes business meeting. Imagine you are a seasoned professional. You are highly intelligent. You are incredibly capable and respected in your native language, but right now you are sitting in a corporate boardroom.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Around the table, native speakers are firing off English jargon, jokes, and data at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You are sitting there, gripped by that paralyzing sensation, literally praying, please, whatever happens, please don't let them call on me to speak.
Oh, it is a deeply vulnerable, almost humiliating position to find yourself in. The reality of the English learning journey is that it is fundamentally messy, chaotic, and often incredibly ego-bruising. The deep discouragement that learners feel, it usually stems from a massive, unrealistic disconnect between their expectations and the reality of the process. Learners very often fall victim to the fallacy of expecting overnight success.
Oh, overnight success. That is a brilliant idiom. Let's make sure we explain that idiom clearly for our listeners.
Yeah. Overnight success is an idiomatic phrase that refers to someone or something that becomes highly successful, famous, or proficient very rapidly, seemingly in the span of a single night.
Like waking up the next day and boom, you're a star.
Exactly. Of course, in the real world, almost nothing is truly an overnight success. It is an illusion.
Right.
It usually takes years of invisible, grinding hard work to reach that point. So when we caution that fluency won't happen overnight, we mean in simple language that it will absolutely require a significant, sustained amount of time, effort, and patience.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. A great C1 sentence to illustrate this would be, despite the breathless media portraying her as an overnight success, the tech CEO had actually been grinding away at her business model in obscurity for a decade.
That is the perfect context.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot expect to go from understanding perfectly articulated, slow-paced textbook audio to effortlessly dominating a chaotic corporate boardroom overnight. It's a biological impossibility. So what is the practical day-to-day solution? How do we cure that overwhelming discouragement?
Top language experts suggest a surprisingly simple, highly tangible daily practice to combat this anxiety: note-taking.
Note-taking, like writing grammar rules.
No, and I want to be very clear here. We're not talking about taking notes on abstract grammar rules or conjugations. The strategy is to keep a small physical notebook or just use a dedicated app on your phone and write down exactly one new, quick, real-world phrase every single day.
Wait, just one? That feels almost too small. If I have thousands of words to learn, why am I only writing down one?
Because the psychology behind this micro habit is incredibly powerful. When you are sitting in that boardroom, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of everything you don't understand, your brain focuses entirely on failure.
Right, you just feel like you're drowning.
Exactly. But by writing down one single thing you do understand, you grant yourself a micro win. It shifts your neurological focus from deficit to acquisition.
Oh, wow.
It builds steady momentum, and it prevents the amygdala from triggering that panic response.
I see the logic. It shifts your entire internal narrative from, I know nothing, this is hopeless, to, I learned one highly specific, useful thing today, and I am moving forward. It's about taking back control.
Exactly. And to get you started, let's do a deep dive phrase practice right now.
Let's do it.
This is a perfect, highly functional phrase to write in your notebook today. The formal textbook version of the phrase is, I have got to go.
I have got to go. It sounds very formal, very proper, almost like a declaration.
Which means it is incredibly rare to hear it pronounced that way in casual, fast-paced speech. Let's trace the reduction of this phrase, just like we broke down the others. First, we entirely drop the auxiliary verb have.
Just get rid of it entirely.
Yeah, the meaning is perfectly clear without it, so it becomes, I gotta go.
Okay, then the got to gets mashed together into the very common reduction, gotta, I gotta go.
What?
We see that in movies all the time.
We do. But in spoken American English, there is another very subtle, crucial shift that happens due to the speed of the tongue.
What's that?
The T sound in the middle of the word gotta undergoes that intervocalic flapping we discussed earlier. It transforms into a soft D sound. So the final, fully reduced real-world pronunciation becomes, I gotta go.
I gotta go. That is incredibly smooth. There is almost no friction in the mouth when you say it. So let's imagine the real-world context for this phrase. You are over at a friend's house, having a great time, deeply engrossed in conversation. Suddenly, you glance at the clock on the wall, and panic sets in. You realize you completely lost track of time, you missed your train, and you are going to be late for an important appointment. You jump up, grab your coat, and as you are rushing to the door, you say, sorry, I gotta go.
That is the perfect context. It conveys urgency, it is highly casual, and the phonetics flow perfectly without breaking the rhythm of the moment. Sorry, I gotta go.
It just rolls right off the tongue.
By mastering just that one reduced phrase today, understanding exactly how the sounds blend together, you have conquered a small, real piece of the fast English puzzle. You put that single phrase in your notebook today, and tomorrow you wake up and conquer another one.
That is exactly how you climb the mountain, Anne. One phrase, one micro win at a time. But here is where we hit a massive roadblock. Practicing phrases in your notebook or repeating them to yourself in the mirror is a fantastic start. But eventually, you have to take that knowledge and test it against real human beings.
You do. There's no avoiding it.
Which brings us to our next milestone preview. In the next 10 minutes, you will learn the profound difference between safe, controlled English practice and the wild, entirely unpredictable reality of real-time conversations, and most importantly, how to survive them.
This brings us to secret number 4. You must speak with someone else. And let me clarify, not just your pet.
Right.
While talking to your dog or cat in English is a fine, low-stress place to start vocalizing, it absolutely will not prepare you for the chaotic reality of human interaction.
That is so true. My dog is an incredibly supportive listener,
Yeah.
but his English vocabulary is terrible, and he never interrupts me.
He's a good boy, but not a good conversation partner.
Let's define exactly what makes a real-time conversation so uniquely challenging.
Well, a real-time conversation is an event that happens in the exact fleeting second you are living it. Unlike a YouTube video or a podcast, there is no pause button.
Oh.
There's no rewind button. You cannot go into the settings and slow the speaker down to 0.5 speed to catch the glottal stops. It is raw, unfiltered, and immediate.
And the most terrifying part is that there are immediate, real-world social consequences. If you are watching a video in your living room and you miss a word, who cares? The video doesn't judge you.
Right.
But if you were standing face-to-face with a human being, looking them in the eye, and you don't understand what they just said, the stakes instantly skyrocket. You are faced with a terrible, split-second choice.
It's awful.
You either have to awkwardly stop the entire flow of the conversation, admit your failure, and say, sorry, I didn't catch that, can you repeat it?
Or you do what 99% of learners instinctively do to protect their ego. You just stand there, smile blankly, nod your head enthusiastically, and silently pray to the heavens that they didn't just ask you a direct question that requires a specific answer.
Yes, the blank smile and the desperate nod. Every single person listening to this has been there. It is a universal survival mechanism when the cognitive load gets too high. But the problem is, faking comprehension doesn't actually help you learn anything.
Not at all. It just perpetuates the illusion. Real-world exposure, as painful as it can be, is the absolute only way to find the actual holes in your listening comprehension.
You have to expose the weaknesses.
Language experts, like Vanessa, share incredibly relatable, humbling stories about this exact phenomenon. Take Vanessa's experience when she was living in France. By all academic metrics, she was an expert.
Right, she knew her stuff.
She had excellent listening skills, she had studied intensely, and she could converse with and understand most people she met. But there was one specific person, her host father, whom she simply could not understand at all.
Oh man, imagine the stress of that. You are living in someone's house, sharing meals with them, and you just have absolutely no idea what the patriarch of the family is saying to you every morning over coffee.
It must have been so exhausting.
Why was this one specific guy so incredibly difficult to decipher?
It was a perfect storm of linguistic challenges that textbooks simply cannot and do not prepare you for. It was a combination of his highly unique, idiosyncratic way of linking words together, his regional accent, and heavily his tendency toward mumbling.
Let's pause right there. The concept of mumbling is such a crucial piece of vocabulary for our learners to master because it is the absolute enemy of comprehension. Let's explain it thoroughly.
To mumble, or the act of mumbling, is speaking quietly, indistinctly, and often rapidly, usually with your mouth only partially open. It is the complete absence of clear articulation.
Right, it's like the words are trapped behind your teeth.
When someone mumbles, the sounds bleed into each other, making it exceptionally difficult for anyone, even native speakers, to hear exactly what is being said. A strong C1 example sentence would be, let's see, the university professor undoubtedly had a brilliant mind, but his constant low-volume mumbling made it nearly impossible for the students in the back row to take accurate notes during the lecture.
That is the brutal reality of the real world. Real people mumble. They talk while they are chewing their food. They turn their head away to look at a screen while they are halfway through a sentence. They do not enunciate like the voice actors on your listening exam.
Exactly. And that is exactly what Vanessa's host father did. He mumbled his way through his uniquely linked sentences. But here is the triumph, the crucial lesson of her story. She didn't retreat to her room and study a French dictionary.
Good for her.
By forcing herself to stay in those messy, real-time, real-world conversations at the breakfast table day after day, her brain's neural pathways eventually adapted to his specific, idiosyncratic brand of mumbling.
The brain literally rewired itself to understand him.
Yes. When she finally had that breakthrough and actually understood a full sentence, he said, the sense of pride and accomplishment was immense. You absolutely cannot achieve that kind of breakthrough by just talking to yourself in the mirror.
You have to step out of the sandbox and step into the fire. And speaking of stepping into the fire, let's look at another phrase we just used that is absolutely vital for surviving those real-time, real-world conversations when you inevitably miss something. We mentioned saying, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yes. Didn't catch that is an essential, highly idiomatic C1 expression. It is a much more natural, casual, and polite way to say, I didn't understand you, or I didn't hear what you said.
Why not just say, I didn't understand?
The psychology of the phrase is interesting. When you bluntly say, I didn't understand, it can sometimes sound a bit heavy, serious, or even confrontational. It implies a profound systemic lack of comprehension on your part.
Right. If you say, I don't understand, it sounds like you're saying, I don't understand the fundamental concepts of quantum physics, like you're completely lost intellectually.
Exactly. But saying, I didn't catch that, uses a brilliant metaphor. It implies that the words were like a baseball thrown a little too fast, and your gloves simply missed them as they flew by.
It removes the intellectual burden. It is light, it is casual, and native speakers use it constantly amongst themselves. You might say, I'm sorry, there was a loud truck driving by and I didn't catch that. Could you say it again?
Exactly. Having a repertoire of these casual survival phrases ready to deploy makes real-time conversations significantly less terrifying. It gives you a polite escape hatch when the cognitive load gets too heavy.
Okay, so we've established the absolute necessity of talking to real people to expose those holes in your listening. But we have to acknowledge that not all real people are created equal when it comes to language practice, which brings us to our final massive milestone preview.
Ready for it.
In the next 10 minutes, we're going to remove the training wheels entirely. You're going to learn how to deal with incredibly fast speakers, highly complex, specialized topics like real estate, and the ultimate crucible, dealing with fast English when you cannot even see the person's face.
This is where we separate the theory from the practice. This is secret number 5. Moving beyond English teachers.
Now, I want to be very careful here. Don't get me wrong. English teachers are wonderful, dedicated professionals.
Absolutely, they do great work.
But by their very nature, they operate in a safe space. They speak clearly. They articulate their syllables. Even more importantly, they subconsciously know that you are a learner, so they automatically adjust their speed, simplify their vocabulary, and use highly predictable sentence structures to ensure you understand them.
They essentially leave the linguistic training wheels on for you. It's a curated experience, but the real world, the actual economy and society out there, does not have training wheels.
Nope, it is rough out there.
Trying to understand a hotel clerk who is speaking quickly because she has a frustrated line of 10 people behind you, or trying to negotiate with a client over a crackly, distorted phone line that is a completely different, unforgiving arena.
It's survival mode.
To truly understand this, we have some incredible specific case studies to analyze that show you exactly what this real-world complexity looks like in practice.
Let's dive right into case study 1. This is the fascinating story of a guy named Dan who was operating in Pittsburgh back around 2010. He had a very specific job working on a river cruise boat. Now, when I say river cruise, you have to adjust your expectations. Do not picture a luxury, sleek European yacht with classical music playing. This was a completely different, much more chaotic vibe.
Very different. Dan's job title was unofficially known as a sharpshooter. His role was highly aggressive. His job was to stand on the dock before people boarded the boat, physically force them to stop walking in line, and take their photograph.
Just aggressively taking pictures of tourists.
Now, keep in mind, even if the tourists explicitly didn't want their picture taken, which makes sense because by 2010, most people already had high-quality digital cameras right on their cell phones, they still had to stop for Dan. Then, hours later, when the cruise was finally over and the exhausted tourists got off the boat, Dan was standing right there on the dock, aggressively trying to sell them a physical, printed copy of that exact same photo for $20.
$20 for a printed piece of paper of a photo you didn't even ask to be taken. It's wild.
It was quite the hustle.
But we have some absolutely fantastic vocabulary to pull from this specific scenario to help our C1 learners. The experts who originally analyzed this story describe this entire river cruise environment as kitschy. This is a fantastic, highly descriptive C1 word.
Kitschy is a wonderful, culturally loaded adjective. It describes art, objects, or design that are considered to be in poor taste because of excessive garishness, sentimentality, or cheapness. However, and this is the nuance, it is sometimes appreciated in an ironic or knowing way.
So it's bad taste, but almost on purpose sometimes.
It essentially means cheap and tacky, but sometimes charmingly so.
Right. If you walk into a roadside souvenir shop that sells bright pink plastic flamingo lamps, or velvet paintings of dogs playing poker, or snow globes with giant glitter, that aesthetic is kitschy.
Oh, totally. A great C1 example sentence to capture this would be, despite having the budget for an elegant renovation, they decided to decorate their vintage beach house in a highly kitschy style, filling it with neon signs and cheap 1970s memorabilia.
Perfect context. Dan's river cruise was undeniably kitschy. It was not a high-class, elegant affair. And then we have the nature of his product, the $20 printed photo. Even Dan himself freely admitted that his entire operation was essentially a ripoff.
Ripoff. This is a fantastic phrasal noun that you will hear constantly in casual real-world English, especially when people are complaining about prices.
That people love to do.
A ripoff refers to a financial transaction that is grossly overpriced or an act of blatant exploitation. It is when you are forced or tricked into paying far more for an item or a service than it is actually worth. For instance, a classic C1 sentence. Paying $15 for a tiny, lukewarm bottle of water at the outdoor music festival was an absolute ripoff, but we had no other choice. Dan knew perfectly well that charging a captive audience $20 for a cheap printed photo when everyone had a smartphone in their pocket was a total ripoff.
Which naturally leads us to our third crucial piece of vocabulary for this case study. Viable. Dan astutely noted that maybe 20 or 30 years ago, before digital cameras were everywhere, this kind of photography hustle was a viable business, but certainly not in 2010.
Viable is an excellent adjective, especially common in business and scientific contexts. It means capable of working successfully, feasible, or able to survive.
Like it actually makes sense to do it.
When we talk about a viable business, we mean an enterprise that can actually generate a sustainable profit and survive in the current market conditions. The strong C1 example sentence. Without securing significant additional funding from venture capitalist investors, the struggling tech startup is simply no longer a viable enterprise.
So let's pull this all back to language learning. Imagine trying to practice your English conversation skills with a guy like Dan. He isn't speaking slowly or enunciating his syllables.
No, he's hustling.
He's talking fast, using localized slang. He's discussing kitschy tourist traps, rip-off pricing models, and viable business strategies. He isn't a trained English teacher. He's a guy trying to hustle a tough living on a noisy dock. If your brain is only tuned to pristine, slow-paced textbook audio, Dan will sound like he's speaking a completely alien language.
Exactly. And that is just a casual, albeit fast, conversation on a dock. What happens to your brain when we step up the difficulty even further and introduce highly complex, specialized, high-stakes topics?
Oh boy.
That brings us directly to case study 2, Brandy the Realtor.
Real estate is an incredibly stressful topic to navigate, even when you're speaking your native language. There are massive sums of money involved, legal contracts, and high emotions. When you listen to a professional like Brandy talk, the sheer speed of her delivery is incredible, but it's the complexity of the topic that really overloads your cognitive capacity.
It's a lot to process all at once.
She is rapidly analyzing the competitive housing market, and without pausing, she brings in specialized financial terms like lenders and down payments.
These are terms you absolutely must know if you want to function in this environment. A lender is the bank or financial institution that is officially giving you the money for the mortgage.
Right.
The down payment is the initial, usually very large, sum of money you have to pay up front out of your own pocket to secure the house. If you haven't studied this highly specialized financial vocabulary, the sheer velocity of Brandy's speech makes it utterly impossible to simply guess what she means using context clues alone.
The context goes by too fast.
Way too fast.
But what is really fascinating about analyzing Brandy's speech pattern is her underlying philosophy. She isn't just a machine throwing around cold financial terms. She actually gets quite philosophical about her industry. She talks passionately about how, in this brutal, highly competitive market, people very often lose out on houses they desperately wanted and had already fallen in love with.
Which is, of course, a deeply emotionally devastating experience. And here is where Brandy uses a highly revealing word to describe that devastation. Bummer. She says it is always a real bummer when her clients lose out on a house.
Let's explain bummer for our listeners, because it is such a uniquely common yet highly casual word, and its usage here is fascinating.
A bummer is a slang noun that essentially means a disappointing, unfortunate, or unpleasant situation or experience. It is very casual, but it is often used to express genuine, relatable empathy without sounding overly dramatic.
So you wouldn't use it for a massive tragedy?
No, if your friend tells you they failed their driving test, you wouldn't formally say, that is a tragic failure. You would shake your head and say, oh man, what a bummer.
Yeah, that fits perfectly.
A solid C1 example. It was a real bummer that the highly anticipated outdoor concert got canceled at the last minute due to the sudden thunderstorm.
And Brandy uses that exact casual empathy to soften the blow of a massive financial disappointment. But she goes further. She says that even though losing a dream house is a massive bummer, she deeply believes that her clients ultimately land in the right place.
Yeah.
She has this philosophy that even if the process is tricky and heartbreaking, they end up exactly in the house where they are meant to be.
It is a very comforting, almost spiritual thought delivered in the middle of a high-stress, cutthroat financial environment. But I want learners to notice the incredibly dense layers of difficulty happening here simultaneously.
It's like a triple threat.
You have a native speaker talking at maximum speed using specialized niche financial vocabulary and seamlessly weaving in abstract philosophical concepts about destiny and fate, all delivered without a single pause for breath. This is the wild, untamed reality of real-world English.
It is the ultimate test of your listening comprehension. But wait, we have to push it even further.
Oh, there's more.
There is actually one more level of difficulty. The final boss of listening comprehension, so to speak, and that is case study 3, audio only.
This is where we strip away all the remaining crutches. This is where we truly remove the visual component of communication. We take away the video, we take away the face-to-face interaction, and you are forced to rely purely on listening to the audio.
For a lot of learners, this is their absolute worst nightmare, a phone call in a foreign language. But why fundamentally is this so much harder than talking to someone face-to-face?
Because humans are profoundly, fundamentally visual creatures. Our brains process visual data significantly faster than auditory data. When you are watching someone speak, even if you are not consciously aware that you are doing it, you are lip reading.
Wow, even subconsciously.
Yes. You are watching the micro expressions on their face to gauge their emotional tone. You are tracking their hand gestures and body language for vital context clues. If a speaker points to their left while saying a complex word you don't know, your brain instantly deduces that the unknown word likely means left.
So all of those visual cues are acting as invisible training wheels. They are helping your brain carry the cognitive load.
Exactly. They are massive contextual crutches. But when you are on a phone call or listening to a podcast, Every single one of those visual crutches is violently kicked away. You are left alone in the dark with nothing but the raw, naked auditory data.
Just you and the sound waves.
In the audio-only clip with Brandy the realtor, she talks rapidly about the financial strategy of prioritizing paying off a car loan before attempting to save up for a down payment on a house. And right in the middle of this rapid-fire financial advice, she drops a fantastic, highly visual idiom.
Yes, she says that paying off a car takes a big chunk of change.
Huh.
I absolutely love this idiom. It's so evocative.
A big chunk of change is a highly idiomatic, extremely common way of saying a very large amount of money. Let's look at the literal words. A chunk is a thick, solid, substantial piece of something like a chunk of ice or a chunk of meat. And change, in this context, refers to coins or money. So when you say a chunk of change, you are forcing the listener to visualize a massive, heavy, physical pile of money.
It's so incredibly descriptive. You aren't just saying it's expensive, you are emphasizing the physical weight of the cost. A great sentence would be, I know buying that top-of-the-line new laptop is going to cost a big chunk of change, but I absolutely need its processing power for my video editing work.
Now put yourself in the learner's shoes. If you are on a crackly phone call relying purely on audio and you suddenly hear chunk of change embedded in a fast sentence about mortgages, your brain has to simultaneously process the metaphorical idiom, decode the rapid phonetics, and understand the underlying financial advice, all without a single visual clue to help you.
That is just brutal.
That is exactly why practicing with audio-only sources is the ultimate, most brutal crucible for truly mastering fast English.
Wow. We have covered an absolute mountain, or should I say mountain of ground today.
We really have.
We have journeyed from the cognitive psychology of watching familiar movies like Forrest Gump to the intricate physical phonetics of baked-together words and glottal stops, all the way to the high-stakes survival tactics needed for real-time, audio-only conversations about real estate. It has been an incredible deep dive. And as promised at the very beginning of the show, here is your highly valuable bonus tip for the day.
This bonus tip revolves around a concept that is widely believed by many top language educators and neuroscientists to be the absolute golden window for achieving a breakthrough in your progress. It is known as the 30-day English Listening Challenge.
30 days. That is a very specific time frame. Why that specific number? Why not a week or a year?
It comes down to the neuroscience of habit formation and neuroplasticity. It is widely believed that committing to a specific, intense practice for 30 consecutive days is the necessary biological time frame required to physically rewire your brain's neural pathways.
Wow, physically rewiring the brain.
By dedicating focused time every single day for one solid month to intense real-world listening practice, like analyzing the case studies we discussed today, you force your brain to adapt. You push through the plateau. It is the golden window to finally reach a point where you can comfortably, confidently understand your coworkers in those stressful boardrooms, your friends in casual coffee shop chats, and the complex, unpredictable conversations you encounter while traveling the globe.
It's the bridge.
It is the bridge between the safety of the textbook and the wild reality of the real world.
30 consecutive days to literally change the physical structure of your brain.
Yeah.
That's a daunting but incredibly inspiring challenge. And speaking of challenges, it is time for our final listener challenge based on today's C1 language focus. We want to test your memory and your active recall.
We discussed a massive amount of vocabulary today, from kitschy to viable, but we want to focus specifically on that final, highly visual idiom we unpacked.
Exactly. We discussed the idiom, a big chunk of change today. I want you to go down to the comments right now and write down the answer. What does a chunk of change mean? And can you use it in an original sentence of your own?
And please do not stop there. We want you to actively practice the phonetic productions you learned today. Tell us in the comments what you got to do today, but write it out exactly like it sounds in real life. I got to go to the store. I got to study for my exam. I got to feed my dog. Write it out phonetically and critically. Say it out loud as you type it to build that muscle memory.
Because physical action creates lasting memory. If you're truly ready to take control and master fast English, take that definitive step right now. Type, I stay committed in the comment box below right now. Let us know that you are in this for the long haul. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe to keep your everyday English flow going. We are here to help you navigate every single step of this journey.
The journey to fluency is undeniably challenging, and there will be moments of frustration, but it is deeply, profoundly rewarding. And I want to leave you with a final, lingering philosophical thought to ponder.
Let's hear it.
When we are straining to listen to fast English, When we are desperately trying to hear those rapid-fire sentences, decoding the dropped G's and the swallowed T's, we have to remember that we aren't just doing a clinical exercise in decoding syllables. We are fundamentally trying to understand humanity.
That is so profoundly true. It is about connection.
Think back to what Brandy the realtor said during her incredibly fast-paced, jargon-filled explanation of the housing market. In the midst of all that stress, she paused to say that sometimes people miss out on a house because it simply wasn't their destiny. They ultimately land exactly where they are meant to be. Language isn't just a clinical, sterile tool for conducting business or passing academic exams. It is the beautiful, chaotic, messy way we connect with other people's destinies.
That's beautiful.
So the very next time someone speaks to you a little too fast and that familiar sensation of panic starts to rise in your chest, don't shrink back in fear. Take a breath, remember the mechanics, and lean in. What destiny are they trying to share with you?